What's up, world? Welcome to Cage Minds. I'm your host, Micah. Today, we're going to be talking about some hot button topics, issues in the world of mixed martial arts. No previews and predictions today, just some other stuff. So we're going to start out talking about something that I've been very worried about. It concerns fighter safety, and that, protecting the athletes, protecting the product. That's what it's all about, so that we can keep seeing great action, keep seeing everything. What I'm going to be talking about is weight cutting. What do you mean weight cutting? We saw how Chris Fleeman looked, and then we hear the report later that within the last 24 hours he cut 20 pounds of body weight. We saw Krasani on The Ultimate Fighter Season 14 on Team Bisping, what he went through, saying that his teammates were having to carry him back and forth, that his body was lifeless and limp and he wasn't able to move to cut weight. We saw the tragic impact of weight cutting affecting Jose Aldo at UFC 129. So to gotta ask myself, is the weight advantage that important to these fighters? Are they that crazy? And really, is it that exciting for us fans to see these guys cutting this much weight, for them to have a big advantage? I remember one of the appealing attractions from the UFC was seeing fighters that are the same size to take on each other. Boy, do I miss that. I can't remember the last time I saw two guys fight each other. And yes, everyone can say that on the day of the weigh-ins, they both weighed the same. But that next night at fight night, sometimes when Anthony Rumble Johnson hydrates or Forrest Griffin hydrates, they're a weight class or so bigger than their opponent. They should be in a weight class higher. Don't really care what you're weighing the day of the fight. I'd be interested to see weigh-ins the day of the fight, because that's the day I'm interested in. That's the day I care that we're seeing a 205-pound man versus a 240-pound man when he rehydrated, or vice versa. And this also, everything that I've seen with weight cut, the way it affects guys, is it really worth it? To also the point of, look at Frankie Edgar. Fights at his walk-around weight and is winning a division full of guys that should be fighting a weight class higher. Gray Maynard, you can't tell me you weren't 170 pounds for Edgar versus Maynard 3. Edgar is fighting versus Maynard and a bunch of other guys that should be in the welterweight division. Cut weight, rehydrate, get on the scales, fight at your 170, because I know that's what you're going to be the night you're fighting. I mean, I know if you're not cheating, you're not trying, but just trying to make up the weight advantage when, guys are shorter against guys that have longer limbs. I know that there's God-given advantages, and there's a scientific advantage that we've all come up with the ease of using. I just don't see the prevalent acceptance for it, and especially in cases of like Anthony Rumble Johnson, who's cutting down from 200 and something to 170 pounds. God bless, thankfully, seeing him finally in the middleweight division, where he should have been all along, because we know he never actually was 170 pounds. Oh wow, what a shock, right? Probably was never even close to that on Fight Night and dominating guys a lot smaller than you. I don't know where the honor of the ultimate fighting comes from in that. It probably goes to more honor to your challengers and actual, I think, extra points every round they survive fighting a man so much bigger. We're not taking David versus Goliath. We're talking a professional sports league with weight classes to see who the best competitor is, size for size, pound for pound, level it up. So with all that going on, again, to get to my point, definitely sure without a doubt now, Frankie Edgar deserves that pound-for-pound number 2 ranking. Still believe Anderson Silva, with his dominance over everyone, is number 1. For a long time, we had George Rush St. Pierre as a collective unanimous number 2. He definitely has lost that in my eyes, not from his consistent streak of unanimous decisions, but from the fact that he also is a guy cutting down 20 pounds that gets unanimous decisions. And he's someone that's cutting down from over 190, saying he can't fight at middleweight. That seems like it'd be a safe, fast cut, and we expect that he's a supreme athlete. It should be a great fight. Doesn't want to have that fight with Anderson Silva. That's my segue now into we're talking about the middleweight division with Anderson Silva and people talking about his legacy, people talking about who's the next title contender. After his 5-round war where he won by submission over Chael Sonnen, he has a dominant first-round knockout over Vitor Belfort, and a dominant second-round stoppage over Yushin Okami, and we're back to where everyone wants Chael Sonnen to take on Anderson Silva. Do I doubt that Chael Sonnen is the best, probably the toughest test that we have in the UFC for Anderson Silva? Yes, he is. He is definitely, without a doubt, the toughest test in the UFC for Anderson Silva. But as I've seen, Anderson Silva passed the test. To me, it's an essential thing that people keep looking at. It was the wrestling of Sonnen's versus Silva's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Well, that's what Sonnen has, is great wrestling. I don't know if there's a guy in all of mixed martial arts in the middleweight division, with Chael Sonnen cutting weight down there too, that could stop Chael Sonnen from putting them on their back and out-wrestle him to get up from that position. I do know two Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners, though, Damian Maia and Anderson Silva, that both submitted Sonnen with triangles. I've never seen a guy get submitted twice and not lose any ground in the title hunt. He went from that to a fight with Okami and a fight with Marquardt. He gets a title shot. That's after a loss to Damian Maia. Damian Maia got out-wrestled by Mark Munoz and bullied around, and everyone kind of doesn't count that as a huge win for Mark Munoz. But on the other side, Damian Maia gets no respect. That should be resounding from he submitted Chael Sonnen, and we all want to say that Sonnen put Silva through the toughest test. Well, he actually just put Silva through the same thing he put Damian Maia through. They both won by submission, but somehow winning over Chael Sonnen by submission has hurt Damian Maia and Anderson Silva and just has made Chael Sonnen look even better. I can't get that. What I also can't get is, even though we say he's the hardest task, it's like saying that the two biggest markets for baseball would be always having the Dodgers play the Yankees in the World Series to get the most draw, to get the most media, to get the most attention. That's what a Silva Sonnen 2 looks like to me. Just get in the two biggest markets to make the biggest fight, to make the most money you can. But in sports, in leagues, in mainstream sports, we have playoffs, we have decisive reasons why champions are decided. Sonnen has had his chance. I think he needs to take a step back in line. Rich Franklin lost his title to Anderson Silva, took a step back in the line, fought his way back to another title shot. Even though Anderson was successful in defending his title and Rich Franklin never got it back, he did work his way back to it. George St. Pierre lost his title to Matt Serra, had to work his way back to it before he retained it. I don't see what makes Chael Sonnen so special that he did what he did. He wrestled and he controlled for 4 rounds. A Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner is known for using their leverage, working things, working a guy till they're tired. We've heard many times about Ken Shamrock and Royce Gracie fighting to time limit draws, fighting for an hour and a half, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu match going on forever till one guy submits the other. Well, that's what Anderson did. In the last minutes, he put together a submission on a more tired opponent. That's exactly what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is. It's weathering the storm, it's using your leverage and getting a submission and stopping your opponent when you can. It was a stoppage, so I don't see how we can give that much more credit to Sonnen than we do Belfort or than we do Okami for them being stopped by Silva. And either way, if you do, I still don't see how after just a fight with Brian Stann, no disrespect to Brian Stann, love Brian Stann, that we give Chael Sonnen the automatic title shot. I heard someone critique Mark Munoz after he said he wanted a title shot by saying Munoz has not beat a great striker, so he still isn't that elite. Well, give me the striker that Sonnen beat. Sonnen beat Okami. He beat Marquardt. Marquardt is a very good striker, but we know a huge deficiency in the wrestling and the takedown defense against Chael Sonnen's. And the same thing goes for Okami. He was known as a wrestler with decent striking. So who's the great striker that Chael Sonnen's beat? Because Brian Stann, yes, he has knocked out Chris Lieben and Jorge Santiago, but that's just 2 in his mixed martial arts career. He still has plenty of room to grow. I don't think he's on that upper echelon level of striker. So as I heard someone say, well, Munoz would need to beat like a Belfort to prove he beat an elite striker. I'd say the same thing goes for Chael Sonnen. He would need to beat Vitor Belfort to say he beat an elite striker. So I still, to that case, I don't see how you give Chael Sonnen a title shot on a 1-fight winning streak. We'll move on to another division. In the lightweight division, Melvin Guillard won 4 or 5 straight before his loss to Joe Lozon. Jim Miller won 7 straight before his loss to Ben Henderson. Well, those guys won umpteenth, 4 and 7 bouts collectively each on their ways to try to get title shots and didn't get them. And you're going to tell me that Chael Sonnen wins 1 fight in a row and he gets a title shot? It doesn't legitimize mixed martial arts for me. We keep talking about being a mainstream, legitimate sport. That you're on the same network now as the NFL, Major League Baseball, NASCAR. Well, they all have definitive ways of showing their champions, and I think it's a time for Dana White, Joe Silva, the Fertitta Zuffa, all to get together and map out how they're going to do this for their league, for theirs, instead of just this, well, the time fits up and we're putting this fight together, or this fight makes the most money. Because to me, that also sounds like, as you want to say that you're not pro wrestling and you're a professional sport, you're sounding like pro wrestling. How are you sounding like pro wrestling? They always put John Cena versus the biggest heel in the WWE to sell the most box offices. Well, with guys like Nick Diaz and Chael Sonnen trying to talk just to get their title shots, they are just embodying that pro wrestling element, and I don't feel that's the best thing that you do for a mainstream sports league. If it's just we're pro fights and we put them together, okay, but if we're a pro mixed martial arts league, I think there has to be some more structure to it, and it's the reason why I love Bellator Fighting Championships. Their tournaments get to decisive fighters. I'd love to see Ben Saunders versus Ben Askren for the welterweight title in Bellator, but we have to wait to see if he beats Douglas Lehman. Not that was a really close fight, but a winner to get to a title shot. Like Ric Flair used to say in pro wrestling, to be the man, you got to beat the man. And when you lose, you need to go back down that line. It's also one of those things that I saw in a report that someone said Mark Munoz could be a middleweight champion once Anderson Silva retires. Well, who cares? To be the man, you got to beat the man. This is going to be like almost a religious, biblical thing. We're going to have to take the middleweight tournament and have it as AS, before Silva and after Silva, because there will not be a definitive champion if you don't beat the champion. And yes, I agree, Chael Sonnen stylistically, technically, probably has the best chance to beat Silva, and the UFC and the media seem to really be pushing this. But he's been submitted twice by two good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners. I have a hard time putting him over just as, that he doesn't need a win streak to get this. I think he needs a win streak to get this title fight. Who should Anderson Silva be fighting? Really? For the UFC, to legitimize the sport, to make something everybody wants to watch? GSP should not be wasting his time with Nick Diaz. Dana White should not be wasting his time with Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz should be looking for another promotion to fight on because of his baby crying, his professionalism. If he was in the NFL, Roger Goodell would be all over him for not helping the sport, not being professional. Who cares exactly, your talents? If you need to play the game, you need to play the game. If this is pro wrestling, he'd be great out there talking this stuff to get his title shot. GSP should be fighting Anderson Silva. I've heard about legacy. That's what would help Anderson's legacy. I also don't get the people that say that it wouldn't help his legacy to beat Mark Munoz and Michael Bisping. They're both top 10 fighters. They both go on a legitimate, legacy of Anderson Silva, of fighters he's laid to waste. I don't get the people that say he needs to fight Sutton and he needs to fight Anderson. You're just saying it because you like his wrestling better, and people are making excuses for what they want to see when they want to see it. Maybe I'm making an excuse because I don't want to see it. But I do believe it would be a fight. I'm just saying I think Sutton needs one or two more before we legitimize him after a loss. He lost by submission. A loss is a loss. He tapped. He didn't lose any ground after losing to Maia or Silva. That's just not right. That's just my opinion. Weight cutting, please be safe. Maybe it should stop. Guys should walk around at the weight that they fight at. Fight a little bit bigger. Hopefully we never see Kenny Florian at featherweight again. This has been Caged Minds. I've went on a long rant about weight cutting and about the middleweight weight class in the UFC. This has been Caged Minds. Follow us on Twitter. Hit me up on Facebook. Give me a comment, even if you completely disagree with everything I'm saying. Thanks for watching, and hopefully when we see Anderson Silva fight, most likely it's going to be Chael Sonnen. I wouldn't mind Bisping or Munoz, though. I just want to see Silva fight new competitors, and grow that legacy. I don't know if rematches help a legacy. Have a good day, everybody. Take it easy.